All right. So as a couple more people join here, I'll go ahead and kind of just get everything started. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I am Jason. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at ANID. And this conversation actually started from another conversation that I had last year. I was meeting with one of our peer mentor and mentee pairs, and both of them started to share their own personal experiences with faith and religion and how that played a role in them connecting as a peer mentor and mentee, but also in their own recovery journeys. And I just thought that this is such a topic that isn't talked about enough. So why don't we open it up and really, explore it together? One thing I do want to add is that there are many different faiths out there. There are many different religions out there. And if yours is not represented on this panel today, reach out to me because we would love to include you moving forward. I am all about including everybody's perspective, everybody's background. So definitely feel free to reach out. We're always looking for new voices to highlight, new stories to share, and you never know who needs to hear what you have to share. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and welcome our three amazing panelists who are joining me today. Let's see, I will go ahead and throw it to Christy first to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thank you. Really glad to be here today. I'm Christy Betway. I am the executive director for Rock Recovery. We're a nonprofit based in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and we do direct therapy services, both individual and group therapy in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. And then we also offer different faith-based support groups that are available nationwide and even worldwide. So we've got one of those starting. I think the dish just started last night, but it runs for a couple of weeks, so we can still take people. But love being a part of this work. I'll share a little bit more about my journey, but I'm recovered from an eating disorder and actually came to faith through my recovery journey, which all started with meeting a cute boy at a bar who asked me to go to church. So, can kind of keep you guys on your toes, keep you interested in what's to come in the story, but you never know how faith might find you and what spirituality might look like in your life. And I'm just really glad to be here today.
All right, thanks, Christy. And that's a good teaser right there. Like that's a good trailer for the rest of the story and the rest of this conversation. So awesome. All right, I will go ahead and throw it over to Kayla to introduce yourself.
I am Kayla. I'm glad to be here. I have been volunteering with ANAD for about 7 or 8 months or so. And yes, so just a little bit about myself. I actually didn't come to faith until after my eating disorder and being recovered, but there's still aspects of having slight faith during that time and then what it has looked like even after being recovered from an eating disorder. And so just seeing those two come together and the areas that I missed before I came to faith and having it come together even afterward just helped me to understand the eating disorder in a better way.
All right. Thanks so much, Kayla. Thank you for all that you're doing here at Anid, and it's been great getting to know you over the last couple of months. All right. And then I will toss it over to Athena, who is also from Anid. And I'm excited because I'll get to spend a lot of time with her over the next month. We were just talking about that. But Athena, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, the feeling's definitely mutual, Jason. And hi, everyone. My name is Athena. I am ANAD's peer support group coordinator. And I think that my faith and eating disorder journey is slightly different than both Christy and Kayla's. I've pretty much always been going to church for as long as I can remember. Almost as long as I can remember. I started going to the current church that I attend when I was 4 years old. And I'm currently a Sunday school teacher for the senior high youth and the youth group leader for the senior high youth. And I'm also helping out my pastor this year with the confirmation class. So I always try to stay involved as much as possible. But I would say really that my eating disorder and faith journey was one where struggling through my eating disorder and eventually coming to recovery transformed also my faith. And I'll definitely go into that later. But just, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Right, amazing. Well, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves and again for being here and for being willing to open up and share about your stories. I know that this can be a very personal topic and a very personal experience, but when we have these conversations, we're breaking through the stigma, we're breaking through those stereotypes, and we're helping each other heal. So I'm going to go ahead and just toss out the first question to the whole panel. I would love to hear from each one of you on it, but it's just what was the role that faith played in your eating disorder recovery journey? Can you maybe take us a little bit through your eating disorder recovery journey and where faith came into it?
I can go first. You guys are okay with that? I have to always like sit on my hands and count to 5 because I always joke. I have a lot to say. So you can always mute me, Jason. I think you have that power as the host. So take me off the stage.
I will not do that, I promise.
Well, don't make promises. No, like I mentioned, I sort of stumbled into both faith actually and recovery. So looking back, I struggled with my eating disorder for about a decade, from 13-ish to 23. I'm now 41, and so I've been recovered for a long time. I'm like, I won't do the math. Each time I tell my story, I'm like, wait, I need to keep updating my math and my numbers, that it's just too complicated. But it is actually, I will say it's encouraging, because I remember at the time in my early 20s, it felt so hard to know, wow, I struggled for over half of my life. And I know people come to recovery at 15, at 55, at 35, 45, like all across the gamut. And one of the things that I've really appreciated about kind of having faith and having my recovery is each day in recovery, I feel like is better than my best day when I was struggling in some ways. And there's always redemption along the way. So that's been helpful for me, but wild to see now that I've been recovered for longer than I struggled. Like I never thought that day would come, and it's interesting to reflect upon that. But I struggled for a while. I was a ballerina growing up. I won't go into many details, but struggled with weight, struggled with comparison, struggled with hard comments. I'm very much a words of affirmation person. And so when, in the ballet world and many different worlds, smaller bodies are praised. And while obviously that's not a value I hold anymore, at the time I just wanted to be enough. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be worthy. And I wanted just to feel safe and like I was doing something right. So a lot of my behaviors and struggles really, I think, were fueled by that like good desire that just got really warped and really unhealthy. And obviously, started with a diet, which I know many of us often start a quote unquote harmless diet that then can snowball into a much more significant and serious eating disorder. So I struggled for a long time, but because the world is so disordered and because I felt like I could look around and be like, well, I'm not as bad as that person, or like, I don't quite do this, or like these things, I can't check these boxes. I thought I was fine. And then I met a dear friend, Tanner. He became a dear friend later at a bar at an ugly sweater Christmas party. So I think I was wearing like Rudolph, like what my mom's sweater, which I was like, oh, mom, can I borrow your sweater for an ugly Christmas? She's like, ugly Christmas sweater or just Christmas sweater? I'm like, definitely just Christmas sweater party, not ugly. I'm so sorry. I'll never say that again to you. But I met this man and he invited me to go to church. And I think at the time I was struggling so much, but I didn't quite have words for it. And so I stumbled into, and he was super cute. He's still super cute. I'm really good friends with his wife. His kids call me Aunt Christy. Don't worry. It's all very good after that. But we were only ever friends. And I went to this church and they were running a 6-week group called New ID at this church. And it's all about finding freedom from an eating disorder. And I remember walking into the church and hearing this announcement and thinking, well, I don't have an eating disorder, but I bet this course can help me lose some weight. Spoiler alert, didn't lose weight, needed to gain weight, all the things. But I just felt really tricked into recovery because I didn't realize I was struggling until I went to this course. And then I felt kind of tricked into finding faith in God because I didn't even know that I needed faith in God, and like God kind of found me. And I love I think it's a psalm, how God plucks us up out of the pit and puts us on the rock. And that's why I also love the name Rock Recovery, because the idea of like standing on on that rock. So I could talk for hours, but I really promise I'll land the plane. And I think for me, so I went through recovery, started seeing a therapist, went through the 6-week course, kind of came, Psalm 18, thank you for being better at verses than me. My husband's a pastor, and I'm like, I don't remember scripture. It's too hard. Numbers are hard. But I know for me, once I kind of learned about this God of love, this God who created me, this God that accepted me, that I didn't have to be perfect, that there was grace. It was a message I hadn't really heard growing up in the same way in the faith traditions I'd been mildly a part of. And it just changed everything. It changed everything. I think it helped me release my grip. It helped me to surrender. It helped me to find more peace and to realize like I don't have to be perfect and I'm still loved on my worst day as much as I am on my best day. And that was really pivotal for me. And then the belief and idea that my body was created, like it wasn't a mistake, that I happened to be this shape and size, that I happened to be this height, that like there was intentionality in the way I was fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And that was a big, big part of my recovery as well.
I can go next. So like I said, my journey kind of looks a little bit different because I, found God and like my faith when I was 4 years old. And I remember the exact day when my mom, it was like I was in the back seat of her car and she's like, Dina, want to go to church? And I was like, what's church, Mom? And I don't remember her answer, but I was just like, sure, why not? And very quickly, my family got very involved with the church. Both my parents became Sunday school teachers, got involved in the Christian education program, and I honestly just kind of followed suit. I really enjoyed the community. My church really became my family, and I loved it. I started personally struggling with my eating disorder the summer before my 8th grade year. I was struggling with friendships, being self-conscious, all of those things. And it, quickly spiraled for me. And as I was trying time and time again to find recovery, to find that like peace within myself, I kept struggling and going back to the eating disorder. At first, I really didn't connect faith and my eating disorder. I just kind of continued going to church and continued to struggle. And the two were just kind of like not really intertwined. But then after a while, I honestly kind of got really angry with God. And I was like, I kept repeating these lessons that I thought I kept hearing, like if you do good things will follow, like the Lord's going to take care of you, all of these things. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like going to these mission trips, I'm volunteering, arguably more than like some of my peers at church. Like, they're not struggling with this. Why am I struggling? Like, what am I doing? And it just kind of like I had to kind of take that step back in my faith, honestly, for a while because I was angry and I really didn't know what my faith was supposed to look like. I didn't know if like it was the right thing for me. I continued going to church at that time. I put on like the mask and I was this like good little faithful girl. But inside I really was struggling with my faith. And it continued that way for a while. I was just kind of like playing the part, following the system, but it never felt truly genuine. Um, and then it wasn't until spoiler alert, I like joined the military and all of that. It wasn't until I got sent home for my deployment and had like all this stuff again, like with the eating disorder, where I was like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And I kept replaying this phrase over and over again in my head. God gives his hardest fights to his strongest soldiers. And I'm like, could that be why? Like I somehow found like eating disorder advocacy in this journey and kind of like made my whole life's journey about helping other people with recovery, helping military personnel with recovery, which is a very underserved area. And I was like, maybe this was all part of it. And now I kind of like live by that statement. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this was just a journey that God had me go on so that I can use my own personal experiences to help others. And my faith has honestly never been stronger. It's very different from where it was back then. I know that things aren't perfect now, that life kind of works out the way that it works out. And sometimes you have to kind of reason with yourself what your journey is supposed to be. It's not just going to be like this yellow brick road laid out before you. But now I'm able to use those lessons that I had to kind of like discover for myself and help the youth of our church kind of discover those lessons when they're in high school, which is arguably a very, very one of the most, if not the most difficult times of someone's life. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah, it was a difficult journey. Yeah, it was a journey that I wish I didn't have to go on. but now I can help other people if they are having a difficult time going through their own journeys, kind of figure out their own faith, their own recovery, their own self in that. And I'm very happy with where I'm at right now with both faith and recovery. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, I grew up in a house. Well, my eating disorder became internalized before there was an eating disorder. And so I grew up in a house full of chaos, a lot of different types of abuse, and one of them was sexual abuse, which was what happened to me. And if you know much or little, just in case if you don't know, a lot of the times eating disorders come from sexual abuse because you internalize what happened to you, what your body meant to another person, if it was of value, if it was just somebody's entertainment and needing to look a certain way, and why my body, why in this way. And so of course, being a child and having it go on for so many years, the way that I can articulate it now, I couldn't articulate it then because I didn't know any better. So my actual eating disorder began when I was about 16 or 17 years old, and that lasted until my early 20s. And during that time, of course, early 2000s, with the entertainment world wanting you to look skinny and look in a certain way. And these are the people who are attractive. And so trying to comprehend what the abuse meant and also wanting to be part of the world of where I am desired, where I am still attractive. And if I have to look like this to have that kind of desire, with it being safe, that would be my control, my autonomy for myself, my body, and what I could do with it if I chose to. And so of course, there was a lot of pain, and I grew up Catholic, and so I was told that God was real, but I didn't see him in the way that I expected him to show up to save me, to heal me, to be there for me. And so, after more tragedy in my life, I figured he didn't exist because he wasn't there in those ways. And so I just internalized all of these things, was just silently suffering through the eating disorders. And what helped me in my recovery was actually fear. I eventually started looking into how bad eating disorders can be for your body. And so when I was looking at people's experiences and how the type of eating disorder that I had destroyed their body, that kind of fear put my life into perspective of what could happen to me in the future. And of course, I didn't just stop cold turkey in what I was doing. It still took a few years, but I just kept thinking about that and what my future could do to hurt other people, my own family members, if I continue down this route. So, where faith came in, by the time I came to faith, I still struggled with my image, my self image, my self esteem, my body, but I wasn't as frequently indulged in what I was doing for my eating disorder. It was mostly done with. I just still had the thoughts of temptation. And so coming to faith, the Father did a miracle where overnight I was suicidal for many years. So overnight, when God revealed himself to me, I woke up and for the first time in my life, I was happy. I was happy to be alive and I never needed depression pills or anything like that. So that in itself was a miracle. But coming into perspective of what happened to me, just the aspect of what worth looked like, what it means for your body to be cherished, to be holy, to be precious, and to be protected. What my body, what my life should have been like, and to know that the Father, even though I didn't see him there for me in the ways that I expected him to be, as an adult, I knew that where I was living, had I come to faith, I think it wouldn't have helped because there weren't people there to help disciple me at that time. And so, in a way, it was kind of protecting me from being angry and running away because who knows what that route would have looked like. So, with healing and faith and eating disorder, it became about what my worth was, what he said my worth was, what my value is, what beauty really meant in this world, but to me personally, and how I am precious in his sight, that I was supposed to be protected and safe, and that my body isn't just somebody's entertainment. And it's not even mine to do whatever I want either, because he created it, and what he desires for it is to be healthy and to have a healthy mindset of what it means to take care of my body and to live in this world. And so I'm hoping that sharing this and whatever details I share, if that resonates with somebody, that it can help you for your own walk, your own healing recovery journey too.
Wow, well, thank you so much, Christy, Athena, and Kayla. That was all really powerful stuff to hear. The one thing that really stood out to me is all three of you were sharing is just how individualized and personalized your faith journeys are. And we talk about it a lot when it comes to eating disorder recovery, is that no eating disorder recovery looks the same. What works for one person might not work for another person. The way it looks, the time it takes, all of that is different. And that's the same when it comes to your faith journeys. And I think that that was so cool to hear, because it just reminds us again that each time we're interacting with somebody who's experiencing an eating disorder, we have to approach them from that personal perspective. Anytime we're trying to share our faith with other people, we have to approach it from a personal perspective, because all of those journeys are personal, and no two are ever going to look the same. So I'm kind of curious. We already kind of touched upon this, but we were looking at it from a perspective of the role that faith played in your eating disorder recovery. But if we flip the script a little bit, what role has eating disorder recovery played in your faith? Because the two are so intertwined, it's not like you can really have one without the other in your experiences. So I'm curious, what role did your recovery journey play in your own faith journey?
Guys, I'll always go first, but you can always go first too. I counted to 8 that time, not just 5. I think for me, I've always said my story is really unique, and I love that we've pointed that out, and Jason, that you brought that to mind too, because I think hearing other people's stories can sometimes bring up shame in ourselves for our stories, which is, of course, not the point of sharing, right? Like, we don't want to compare, we don't want to wonder why not me, we don't want to do all those things. And I know, as you know, I came to faith later in life, and a lot of people were always like, wow, I'm so jealous of your story, because it's like a bit more dramatic. It was a bit more obvious. It was a bit more clear cut in some ways. And I was always like, oh my gosh, I'm jealous of your story, because you grew up in this faith forever, and like you knew so much more, and you had a different experience. Like I just think, and I realized, oh, I can't compare. We can't, like, we do sort of have our own journeys, and coming to peace with that can be really challenging and complicated. And I think for me, when I think about my recovery and how it affected my faith, it was kind of blurry, because it all for me happened around the same time. But now that it's been longer since and I use the phrase recovered, for me, that rings true. I also totally think it's great to say in recovery, or whatever that might look like for somebody else. But for me, it has become a bit of a calling. Like, I think finding freedom from something has spurred me to want to go serve others. And we all have different views of prophecy and spiritual gifts and all the things. But I went to a church in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I came to faith. That was a little, like, hands raising. I loved it. And I remember a stranger prayed for me after I was a couple years into recovery, and I was feeling really compelled to go help other people, kind of like what you were saying, Athena. It's like, I was like, ooh, I went through this horrible thing, and now I want to go help other people going through really hard things too. And she didn't know me. I never met her before. And she prayed Isaiah, I think it's 41 over me, again, bad with the numbers, where it's like, you'll bring freedom to the captives, and bring a yoke of healing, and pull out from the darkness those that sit in the dungeon, and release us from captivity. And she's like, I just feel like God's going to use you to bring other people to freedom in a way that you've been healed. And does that mean anything to you? Is this totally random? Am I totally missing it? And I'm like crying. I'm like, no, it means everything. It totally seems true. And so I think I'm careful not to say like I'm grateful for my eating disorder recovery, which I think you were saying too. I think it's like, I'm not grateful for it, because like, that sucked. That was not a good time. Like, I did not enjoy going through it. And I believe that God's a redemptive God. And so I love that no matter what hard thing we go through, I do believe that there's fruit and redemption to come from it. And I think a lot about the scripture from Joel. Also don't know the number, guys. I'll work on my numbers next time. Where God says, I'll restore the years the swarming locusts have eaten. And I think that's what I've experienced in my faith life and recovery life as over these last 15, 20 years. I just see the restoration. Like I see the hope, I see the difference. And while for me, I'm a kind of all or nothing person. So once I was presented with like this faith and recovery at the same time, I was like, oh, I'm all in. Like, give me the handbooks, give me the appointments. Here's my insurance card, here's my credit card. Like, I'm in. I'm kind of that way in faith too. So I think I was similar. Like, once I got over my hesitations and my doubts and read some books and realized God isn't always who people say God is, I realized, oh, actually, I am into this. Cool. And I was all in. And so I think being recovered has helped me to just be more freed up to serve other people and to like be in community and be in relationship. And not because it's like, oh, I'm so great or I've checked these boxes, but from a place of surrender and a place of vulnerability. And we've served clients through the years at Rock Recovery who have really struggled because like I've been a Christian my whole life and I've struggled for 30 years with this. What's wrong with me? And it's like nothing. The journey is just unique. The journey is just different. And I don't know how God will use it differently. I don't know that like how that will look for different people, but I think there is still a lot to come in our faith journeys because of our struggles and because of kind of what we've gone through. And again, that's just where I think of like the redemption piece.
I would say for myself that the recovery aspect or the eating disorder aspect of my faith has been more of like a self-focus. There's times when people say like, oh, it's selfish to always think about yourself. But even as you know, on the airplane, they say to put the mask on yourself first before you can help others. And so just understanding the intricate details of how wounds really affect you as a person. It affects your belief system, your nervous system, your subconsciousness, and how you view the world. And so with that, it's helped me to really listen to people. It's helped me to understand, again, just how intricate we are, how delicate we are, and how important it is that identity is spoken over ourselves and each other, that we're speaking identity to other people, that not to become a people pleaser or codependent, but being mindful of what we say, how we talk to ourselves, because how we talk to ourselves ends up somehow coming out to other people as well. If you're self-critical, then you're thinking critically of other people or how they dress, how they look, what their body shape is, etc. And so it's helped me to be more kind to myself, that the Father is kind to me, and that it's important that I'm kind to myself because that helps heal the wounds that I've had. That way, then I can view the world with healed, hold on, healed wounds with truth, I should say, with what is true about me, my values, my worth, identity, etc. And so I think, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? You go through something that isn't fun, that's hurtful, that you wish you never have gone through, but and yet the Father doesn't allow our pain to be wasted. So there is wisdom gained through it, how to interact, the type of questions to ask, what not to ask, open-ended questions, how to listen well, the compassion that we have, the empathy that we have, whereas people who don't go through this might not understand. So then their way of helping might not actually be as helpful. People can understand this person's trying to help me, but they don't understand what this actually looks like or what it means or how deep it really goes. I can't just get over something. Whereas people like us, we're able to say, yes, it's a journey, or falling back into something isn't the end all. It's sometimes we take one or two steps back and we keep going, we keep getting up. And if you have a day or two where you just need to stay on the ground and rest in the Father's hands, and that's okay too. So I think this has really helped me to have patience towards myself and
For me personally, it was really easy for me to be the good little church-going girl, like when I didn't have my eating disorder, because I'd never truly struggled then. And it was really, really easy for me to have faith, to do to go through the motions, go to church every Sunday, volunteer, all of that, when I wasn't struggling with my eating disorder, because honestly, I had nothing to complain about. I was like, Yeah, why wouldn't you believe in God? This is great. Life is fantastic. And it took truly struggling for me um to like really come around and to have that like what truly is my faith? What is it for me? Like, is God there for me? What do I want my life to look like? And I would say that happened for me, during my deployment when I felt like everyone had turned on me. I had no one to turn to. I didn't have my family at the time. I had stopped responding to all their letters. I stopped responding to my church family's letters. Like, I cut off the world. And I had no one to turn to but God at that time. And despite being angry, very angry with him, or her, however you God, I was like, I'm here for a reason. Like I'm alive still for a reason. Like there's something going on, right? I've made it through the trenches. Now what? And that now what moment, like now what do I want my faith to look like? What do I want my life to look like? Allowed me to kind of like build from the ground up, and to have more of an authenticity in my faith instead of just going through the motions now. There's like a reason, a purpose for what I do and why I do things. And I feel like I'm truly able to be more empathetic with others now who might also be struggling with their faith or with life in general, because I have gone through difficult times and I've kind of like made it out the other side. I'm not saying I can totally relate to everyone else's experiences, but I can relate to having difficult life experiences and what that faith did for me. And hopefully somehow relay that message onto them in a way that makes sense for them.
All right. Can I just say how cool it is that we have this space to talk about these things today? It's been great to listen to each one of you share so far. And kind of around this, I would love to explore the community aspects that come with faith. I think when I so often think of going to church, I think of community and of being surrounded by people who are there to support me. So I would love to hear how perhaps your faith journeys helped you find that community and connection that you needed in recovery. Because we all know eating disorders isolate. You can feel all alone. But luckily with faith, I think oftentimes we can find that community and connection.
I would say for myself, at first it was hard because when you go through abuse, it's hard for you to trust people. And for me, on a humanistic level, even being in faith, especially in my first few years of my life as a believer, it was hard for me to trust anyone just because I've been so hurt by people who have kind of destroyed that. And so for me to find community, the Lord, He actually knew. And so He actually had me. There was a coworker of mine when I came to faith. She was already a Christian, and so we had long conversations. And then about a year after I came to faith, she had two friends who were looking for a roommate, looking for a house, and I was planted in with two other women. They had grew up in decent homes where they didn't know anything of how to have the kind of empathy that I would have needed. However, slowly but surely, I was able to trust them with parts of my life that I could share with them, and finding a congregation to go to where I would, on and off throughout the years, have mentors whom I did eventually trust and be able to open up and have their wisdom poured into my life. And not just me telling myself, oh, I have worth, I have value, but somebody else speaking that into my life, somebody else's voice that sounds different from mine, somebody who is older and sees me from a different perspective, telling me what is true about me and not just being nice or giving me these emotional, motivational speeches, but people who got to know me, people who really saw me, my unique value, how I have been brought into the world and have all these beautiful things about me that the Father put in me, and how they could see it, how they could speak to me of the gifts that I couldn't see yet. So being with people, being in a community does bring a support, as you said, that being isolated doesn't bring, and with shame too. The more that you talk about it, almost like exposure therapy in a way, the more that you talk about something, the less grip it has on you. So finding people that you can really trust, was really helpful for me to be able to talk about it and not feel as much shame, and to know it doesn't need to have a grip on me, because there is freedom in Christ, but of course the humanistic aspect and trauma that comes in. So sometimes there are roots that need to be uplifted, and throughout the years, the Father can bring in people to help uplift, or yeah, take the roots out and have people pour into you and be able to pour into others as well, by sharing, by opening up, by being vulnerable and proving to your subconscious, because there's neurological aspects of this too, that it is safe. It is safe to be vulnerable, that it's okay to share these things, because it's not something that I did to myself, but being a victim and becoming a survivor of something can give you that strength, can help you with that. So, yeah, community was really helpful for me.
For me, it was really my church family that was the first place that I truly opened up about my eating disorder outside of my family. Because back when I was first started struggling, like, doctors were like, just lie about what you're going through. Lie about, your doctor's appointments and all of this. Like, you don't want people to know what you're going through. So you have to like lie about it. I remember they specifically told me to say I had a GI infection. So that is, I didn't even know what that was, honestly, back then. People were just like, what's going on? I'm like, GI infection. They're like, what is that? I'm like, Google it. But it was, I remember on my first youth mission trip, it was like a week out of the summer, we went and did service. It was Thursday night, because that was cry night, which was a very meaningful service that they didn't specifically do it to make you cry, but it was known you were supposed to cry on cry night. So my, youth group went to do our own kind of private, like little Bible study thing. And like everyone was like sharing and crying. And I'm like, if I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna say it like now, like this is the time, right? And I had no clue what people were gonna say. I was repeating what the doctors were telling me. I'm like, they're gonna hate me after this. They're gonna judge me. They're not gonna want to talk to me. But I shared it. I think I was staring at the ground. I didn't look anyone in the eye. But I shared what I was going through, what I was struggling with. And the support that I felt that night, like the hugs that I got, was so empowering. And I was like, wait, I don't have to be ashamed for struggling with this anymore. Like, I don't have to be ashamed. And it honestly took me years, a lot of time, to be more open about it and to share with other people, like outside of my church family and my regular family. But I remember at that moment, I was like, this is nothing to be ashamed of. Eventually, I'll be able to like open up about this, I think. But at least now I have like this small moment of empowerment, and it felt really, really good, honestly.
Yeah, similarly, we like wrote a blog years ago. We used to have a chaplain on staff at Rock, which we don't currently have, but one day might bring back. And she wrote a blog that was about like the gift of I get it, like something about hearing someone else share something. And even if it's different than your experience, but you're like, I get it. Like it can just help really relieve that shame and make you feel understood. And when I went to that support group, New ID, at that church for the first time, I remember it's always, and we run a similar program now at Rock Recovery. We do this virtually for 6 weeks, but every week it's a testimony of someone who's recovered, teaching or a discussion topic, and then discussion time and prayer time to kind of close out. And I remember during the discussion time, I like went in and I was like a little grumpy about being there. And I had my arms crossed and I was just like, I'm not going to say a word. These people will not understand me. I'm just here. I don't even know why I'm here. And a woman across the group, which I literally don't remember what the thought even was at this point, but she said something out loud that I had thought, thousands of times and thought I was the only one who ever had this terrible thought, said it out loud. And I was like, oh my gosh, me too. Like just that power of like the gift of I get it. And I suddenly just remember kind of crying and being like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. And then just like, oh, then God also sees me. Like being seen through another person helped me also feel like cared for and not kind of isolated and abandoned. And so living in community obviously is just so critical. Also, we all have our blinders, we have our blind spots. It's such a bummer, but having the people also speak into our lives, be there for support, accountability, and also just encouragement has been so critical for me. And I think at Rock, that's why I love that we do both individual work and group work, and love that Anna does a lot of group work, because like There's so much healing in community, and we do a meal support therapy group called Breaking Bread because like duh. And it's like you just the power that comes with breaking bread together, right? Like that's one of the coolest things of recovery is I'm like, I love eating now. I love going out to eat. Like I love all these things, and just the power that comes in community from breaking bread and sharing a meal is so beautiful. I will say this wasn't part of the question, but I will say too, one of the things that's the most devastating to me in my work is hearing the stories of really well-intentioned people who get it wrong. Like you do the brave thing and you share with a friend or you share with a pastor or a faith leader, and they just don't know, and they just say things that can be. We've heard a lot of horrible stories of pastors who are just like, "Oh, let's just repent of your sin issue," right? Like let's just like. Oh, and it makes me so angry. I'm like, should I curse? Should I cry? I don't know. Like, I'm so sad and so angry about it. And it's like people just don't know. And so it's tough to choose to go first and share your story and be vulnerable. And it's like someone's got to do it. So the more we can do that, I love this phrase. It's where it's like, mental health, mental illness is not a casserole disease. So often in faith communities, you have a baby, you have a surgery, there's a food train, people are bringing you meals. Like we don't get that yet. I think we're getting better and getting there. So the more we can bring these conversations into the church community and Rock Recovery, we do different trainings for clergy and lay leaders and people too, just to help people understand, what to say, what not to say, how to support people, because faith communities are front lines often, and there's so many good beautiful stories of healing, and unfortunately we're still humans and people get it wrong sometimes, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't share and shouldn't be a part of the communities. It just means there's more to learn and there's more for us to help others understand the issue too.
Thanks, Christy. And this is a great point, or this is a great place for me to ask the next question, because I want to learn more about rock recovery. So could you tell us a little bit more about rock recovery? And I know we've got a question in the chat too about connecting with rock recovery. So how can folks go about doing that?
It's my favorite thing to talk about. I always joke I pity the person that sits next to me on a plane and is like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "How much time do we have?" So we do have some faith-based support groups that are open to anyone of any faith background. I know it seems that the three of us are all Christians, or maybe even all of us, I don't know. But I think that we do have them open to any faith background. They are led from a Christian perspective. So there is scripture, there is prayer. I think I see Beth Ask, who's one of our amazing volunteers on the call, who also runs our monthly prayer group for loved ones who have a loved one going through recovery. So we do have some really great programs that are online that are faith-based support groups. So they're often run by clinicians. They're sometimes just led by trained lay people like myself. I don't have the fancy letters. I feel some FOMO about it, but it's okay. And those are available to anyone. There's curriculum. There's different kinds of groups, different kinds of support that we're working on. And we're hoping to create a new program in the next year or two. So stay tuned on that. But those are available for anyone, anywhere. And then again, we have therapy programs in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, and different educational programs as well. I love speaking and sharing my story, speaking at conferences, women's groups, any kind of church situation, or even, out in the community too. So we have lots of different educational presentations that we offer. And we are hoping to continue to expand our work nationwide as well. And we're a nonprofit, so everything we do is always sliding scale. Affordability is always at the core and heart of our mission. So we'd love to connect, and I can put my email in the chat. It's not a huge group, not that I think I'll be so popular and get flooded with emails, but I'll put my email in the chat too. If anyone wants to reach out to me directly or has any questions, I can include our website too.
Amazing. Thanks. And I'll also include a link when I send the recording out of this conversation later too. So we are excited to always partner and collaborate with Rock Recovery because you all are doing incredible work. And now I'm going to toss it over to Athena because we've got some support groups of our own. And I know we've got our pop-up group series, especially around some of the religious holidays that are out there. So Athena, would you be able to share a little bit more about our support groups in that series?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that our support groups are a little bit different than Rock Recoveries, where it's not necessarily faith in general, but around specific holidays that might pertain to several different faiths. And really the support groups are there to help individuals learn the tools that they need to be able to get through the holidays and be okay. A lot of people have anxiety leading up to these holidays because maybe they have to, recognize the holiday a little bit differently. Maybe they're nervous about seeing family members during that holiday, et cetera, et cetera. And it looks different for all different faiths, all different holidays. So really the support groups are there for coping skills, tools, and anything that the individuals might need. And I will say that like we try to cater to all different religions. So if there is a holiday that you might find difficult in your own religion or something like that, like please reach out to us at any time. I want to be inclusive to all religions. Like we're not just catering to one specific religion. So if you are looking for support around a specific holiday that you might be struggling with or have anxiety about, please reach out to us. I am not opposed to creating a support group for that, and I will always try my best to do so.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Athena. And that's one question we'll get sometimes is, well, why isn't there a support group for this or for that? And it's usually because we don't have somebody to help lead the support group. So if that is something that you would be interested in doing, definitely reach out to us because we'll make it happen. You know, if you need it, we'll make it happen some way or another. I've got a question here now that I want to ask you, Kayla, and it's around how your faith helped you when it came to your view of self and your view of food. I'm curious, could you maybe walk us through a little bit of that, how it was at first, and what that looks like for you now today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that um, with my faith and my view of food, I think it depends. I mean, sometimes I crave chocolate or sugar from time to time. And so it's like, okay, what happens when I'm craving, or do I feel guilty if I feel like I'm indulging, right? Or whatever it is, anything that seems like it could be a, I don't know, some behavior that could look like an eating disorder, but being that it's in and of itself just a moment of something, I like that there's freedom that I have now, or if I want to have a whole chocolate bar, I don't feel guilty about it. I don't feel bad about it. The behaviors that I once had are not behaviors that I currently have. And so I like that, oh gosh, to gather my thoughts, not make you guys wait on me. I would just say freedom. I would say freedom to live, freedom to enjoy what my body can do. You know, that if I want to entertain with my body, it can be dancing. Like I take dance classes is what I mean. I take dance classes. I can go for walks, all these different things, and that it can be enjoyed in a good, healthy way. And with food, we can enjoy food and that's okay. Of course, there's always a limit. Of course, we don't ever want to overindulge in anything, but yeah, freedom. I know it's not quite in depth or anything, but that's just what I get from all of it is that my faith has given me that freedom, like that, like almost like a permission that it's okay that I can eat a little bit more because it's not a consistent thing. It doesn't affect the way that my thoughts are, the wounds that I had or the thoughts that swirl around it at that time aren't what I have today. And And so it's a lot healthier up here. And because it's healthier in my mind, I live healthier, make healthier decisions. I don't have much else. It might not be that helpful, but that's what I have is that there's hope and freedom to be able to eat and just live and be good and be happy.
I think that's a huge response. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that because that's important. There is no underestimating the power of being able to heal and the power of being able to have freedom. Because for a lot of us, that seems so far away and so distant, especially in the depth of an eating disorder. There's a couple questions that have come in through the chat that I would love to kind of pose to everybody. And the first one that came in is, how do we deal with the guilt of feeling like we're living in sin when having an eating disorder? I think that's a very important question to explore.
I'm not going to even count to five and try to wait for this one. It's such a good question, and it's such a hard question. And one of my favorite phrases that immediately comes to mind, Pastor Rick Warren, who I do not like his Daniel diet or the other things he does from the food perspective, but he has a lot of struggles with mental health in his family. And he had really distinctly kind of said, It's not a sin to be sick. That's like a phrase that he often uses. And I find it really important to separate sin from sickness. So and again, married to a pastor, but not a theologian over here. But I think obviously sin is anything that separates us from God and from each other. It's anything that falls short of the glory of God. That'd be kind of my definition that I work from. So obviously our disordered behavior, the things we do, like God wants so much more for us than that. Like there is something more, like we should be caring for our bodies and nurturing our bodies and our spirits and ourselves. And we wouldn't say it's a sin to have cancer. We wouldn't say it's a sin to have other kinds of illnesses. And so as we think about mental illness and mental health conditions, similarly, brain-based disorders, the things that we're learning, it's not a sin to have anxiety and it's not to have depression, right? So I think it's it's very challenging because I'm not saying God wants us to stay in eating disorder behavior. And I find personally what I've seen for those that we serve, equating an eating disorder to sin can be really damaging and harmful. And I'm not quite sure it's getting at the heart of what sin is because of what's at the root and because of what is going on. We actually have a blog about this that I will find that a woman who's a chaplain wrote for us, who's amazing and really unpacks it really well because it's complicated. I've also found too, in conversations I've had with people, because I get to run some of our faith support groups. And I'll say too, our therapy groups aren't faith-based, just for the record. We have separate faith-based groups. Organizationally, we're a little run differently. But sometimes I think like, I don't know how to say this without saying it. Sometimes I think it's really easy for me to want to categorize my behavior as sin, to feel separate from it, or to almost like self punish myself sometimes. Like there can just be so much complexity to our struggles. So I think bringing it to the light and having some compassion can be really helpful. And that's what really helps us change as well. And I feel like God enters into that with us.
I think that you said that really well, Christy. I want to add to that and say, I mean, having that sin, that feeling of guilt, the emotions of it and thoughts that come with it too. What's helped me in different areas of my life is like picturing a kid. Like, would I be mad? Would I be saying these things to a child who's suffering with an eating disorder or a teenager? And with guilt, of course, guilt is meant for us to be like, oh, I'm doing this thing, I want to turn around, right? And as Christy said, it's an illness too. And so it'd be like telling a 2-year-old to learn how to bike, right? And you don't just go from here to here. And so with the feelings of guilt and the thoughts that come with it, I would just say try to encourage yourself as you're trying to encourage a child with the patience and compassion that the father wouldn't be looking at you. How dare you ignore all of this? How dare you? Like shame type of thoughts that you think that the father would have towards you. And so just yeah, guilt versus conviction, right? You can have conviction and or guilt, but that doesn't mean that your behavior or your thoughts about it are going to like suddenly change your action. And that's why the compassion and patience is so important, to not shame yourself. Like again, guilt and conviction aren't wrong things to have. It's just, are you sitting in that and spiraling into those thoughts and emotions that you become depressed, that you give into it there? So there's a difference between that. So the compassion is so important. You're on a journey, and journeys, you don't just get up and start running, and you can't run 5 miles in one day if you just started training yesterday. So it takes time, and to remind yourself of that, it takes time, and that's okay.
Thank you so much for those answers. We've had a couple of other questions come in, and they're kind of around the recovery journey itself and finding that balance. I think one of the questions is sort of around that motivation factor and pushing yourself to recover, but also, maybe not pushing yourself too hard or either slacking off, like going one way or the other, finding that balance when it comes to motivation and recovery, and also how to remain patient throughout the eating disorder recovery journey. I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to those.
I think for me, when I was putting so much pressure on myself to like what I got to recover, right? Like rainbows, unicorns, butterflies on the other side, like got to find that. That's recovery, like let's go kind of thing. That was when I was struggling the most with recovery because spoiler alert, I wasn't finding those rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies. They were long away. And it's when I stopped putting that much pressure on myself to like reach the final destination that I believed recovery to be and to focus more on the fact that recovery is a journey, just as faith is a journey, that I found true recovery because I stopped putting so much pressure on myself. I started to really feel my feelings and think about like, okay, what are my next steps, my immediate next steps? Who cares like 10 years down the road what life is going to look like? What can I do right now to not only honor myself, but to honor my faith, to honor like what I want my life to be about. And to be okay with the fact that I was probably going to struggle along the way. Because even if, like, even in my current place of recovery, which is extremely strong, like I struggle. That's just life in general. Life in general, you're going to struggle with regardless of what faith you hold. So when I stopped putting so much pressure on myself to not struggle, to not feel those feelings, that's when I started to feel the feelings less, to struggle a little bit less, to go easy on myself, and to find what I truly believe is a strong recovery.
I love the podcast by Emily P. Freeman, The Next Right Thing. It's not at all eating disorder related. It's just kind of spiritual. She's a spiritual director and author and a couple other things. But my best advice is always, it's like, be still, God will fight for you, surrender, and like do the next right thing. Like you got to do both. And it's so annoying because you're like, well, what is it today? Is it like surrender and like the Lord's going to do it? Or is it like pick up the phone and call a therapist? And it's kind of like, yeah, it's both of those things. And that's infuriating for my little type A black and white brain to navigate, but that's my best advice, I think.
Right, well, we are approaching the top of the hour here, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time, and I want to thank everybody for these amazing questions, and thank the panel too for just sharing. Just thank you so much for embracing vulnerability and sharing your stories and having this space that we could all share and talk today. So I will send out a recording with this event. I'll have some resources on there for Rock Recovery. I'll include some of our resources from ANID. For those of you who are watching, if you ever need support, definitely reach out to our organizations. We are here for you. And again, Christy, Kayla, Athena, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Take care.
Bye.